Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for clicking on another Rank the Movies video. It is Wednesday. That means it's time to talk some movies. Last week I talked about a movie with its sequel that I thought maybe they could have rehashed it, and they decided not to. This week I'm looking at a series of films made by the same comedy troupe. That is, of course, the Broken Lizard comedy troupe. I'm going to look at their entire library of films, which is 6 movies, so we're going to dig right in with their first movie, Huddle Cruisers. I don't have a case for it to show off, because I don't actually own this movie. I own the rest of the library, and I really like the rest of the library. I don't like this movie. For those of you who have no idea what Huddle Cruisers is, it is the first film Broken Lizard made. It is the film that got this troupe the ability to make their other movies. Basically, it takes place on a college campus. I believe, I'm not 100% sure, I believe this was originally made as a student film. It takes place on a college campus. A couple of guys break into the kitchen at night. They get caught. They're put on academic trial. One of their other friends who was with them but didn't get caught falls in love with their lawyer. He's a rugby player. They get into playing against the girls' other boyfriends, rugby team. It's not a great comedy. It's not the best work these guys have put out. But given the fact it was their first movie and it's the weakest of the series, that says a lot. I could have bought a copy of it just for the review. I decided not to because I didn't have a lot to say about it. It isn't a bad movie. It's just not, to me it wasn't that entertaining. Some people might really like it. I think they show what they're going to do in the future with their acting and comedic chops. I just don't think it's all there yet. So now that we got Huddle Cruisers out of the way, let's move on to their actual films, starting with, of course, Super Troopers. This is, of course, the story of a group of highway patrolmen who are finding out that the local police, that either them or the local police are going to be shut down. And it's just their antics and their misadventures. It's a really fun movie. I got to see this one in theaters, and I was not old enough to see this movie in theaters. I was young when I got to see it. But it was a lot of fun. I've always liked this movie. It's always just been a great comedic great comedic idea, just to allow them to get out their jokes, such as the syrup chugging contest towards the beginning of the movie. The Big Bear fight scenes are great. The dude distracting the cops by humping a bear costume in the woods while dressed as a hunter. It's all really good comedy. It is very vulgar and very filthy comedy, but it's good comedy. Super Troopers is a class act of a film. It really is. After Super Troopers, they moved into the horror genre with Club Dread. I love this movie. I've always loved this movie. I don't care what people have said about it, how much people like it or don't like it. Like, I like Super Troopers. Super Troopers is a great movie, and it's grown on me over the years. Club Dread never had to grow on me. I watched it the first time and went, this is awesome! Basically, it takes place on an island that is a party island. People go to party and have a great weekend. And it is ran by a former musician, Coconut Pete. Yeah, it's Coconut Pete. Ha-ha! It's ran by Coconut Pete, played by the great Bill Paxton. And the Broken Lizard cast members play the various employees of this resort. Basically what happens is someone starts murdering off the workers, and it's a comedy trying to figure out who the murderer is, but it's one of those where it's not that important about who the murderer is, more about the comedy and what's going on, and these characters interacting with and dealing with each other. I think it's a hilarious movie. I think it's a great film. I think it was the right step for this group in terms of moving forward with getting out there. I know it didn't do that well. I think it's one of the 2 least, not counting Huddle Cruisers, this would be in the low category of how well these movies did in theaters. But I love Club Dread. I think it's a great movie. I think it's a really fun movie. If you've never taken the time to see it, check it out. It's not, for a horror movie, it's not that horror. Like, there's not a lot of blood and guts and all of that. For a comedy, it's really funny. I love Club Dread. It is a great movie. This might be my favorite Broken Lizard film. It might only be surpassed by one other one we'll get to, but I'm not 100% sure. But I love Club Dread. It is a great movie. From there, they moved on to Beer Fest. Still in the comedy genre this time. It's definitely a different kind of plot as the other ones. Or I guess, again, they went from Super Troopers, which is the cop movie, Club Dread, which is the horror movie. Beer Fest is the drunk asshole movie, kind of like your road trip, Euro trip, American Pie kind of movie. Basically, they have a pair of brothers who venture to Germany to spread the ashes of their grandfather. While there, they find out they are descendants of a great brewermeister, and you find out that at some point their grandmother fled with their great-grandmother fled with their grandfather to America and stole a recipe for beer. And because of that, the American side of the family is hated and not allowed to participate in Beer Fest, which is a drinking competition. The brothers return home defeated, decide to build a team to participate in Beer Fest, and train over the next year so they can kick their German ancestors' asses. That's really what the movie is. They eventually find the recipe that was stolen, and they start making the beer, which is supposed to be delicious. And, they eventually go back and win the competition with the great line of, "We're not that drunk." It is a fantastic comedy. Admittedly, as far as grown on me over the years, this is the one that's done it the most. I first watched Beer Fest and went, "This movie is stupid." But then time set in. And time set in and I watched again because I was watching Broken Lizard films. And I went, I guess I'll watch Beer Fest again. I'm watching Broken Lizard films. I guess I'll watch Beer Fest again. And eventually I started going, man, I kind of like this movie. This movie's kind of funny. So overall, other than Huddle Cruisers, this might be my least favorite, but it's still pretty high up there. I still really like Beer Fest. It's a really fun movie just to sit down and watch every once in a while. Again, if you like Super Troopers and you haven't checked out Beer Fest, I think other than the Super Troopers movie, this is their second highest regarded movie after that set. But check it out. It definitely holds the comedy of the other Broken Lizard films, and it does it so well. Next up, they came out with the Slammin Salmon. This one I feel like is not well known by people. Like, it came out under the radar, everyone's radar, at least here in Wisconsin. It came out under everyone's radar, because I think I had to watch it, either I rented it or I had to watch it off of Netflix. It never had a theatrical release. All three of these, had pretty decent theatrical releases, but Slammin Salmon really didn't. At least, again, not in this area. Basically, it takes place in a restaurant. This is the restaurant comedy. Again, they keep moving through. You got cop, horror, low-key comedy, and now a restaurant comedy. The characters all play various positions in the restaurants. Basically, they play the servers. Michael Clark Duncan plays their boss, who's an ex-boxer, who owes the Yakuza money and demands that in this one night of sales, they get the money together. So the manager, played by Kevin Heffernan, who is one of the Broken Lizard members, tries to get his employees to make more money because what he needs to pay off the Yakuza is more than they make in a good night. So he begins setting up competitions, offering cash prizes and hotel stays and tickets to shows. And it's just, again, it's these people, it's the cast members interacting with the various tables and people. You also get a great performance by Colby Smulders. Before she started in How I Met Your Mother, she plays one of the waitresses. It's a really good film. I liked this movie the first time I saw it. It was really hard for me to find a copy of it on Blu-ray. I eventually had to buy this from a family video, not even when it was going out of business. They just happened to have a copy, and I offered to buy it, and they sold it to me. That's how I got this movie on Blu-ray. So, yeah, I like this movie. It's a lot of fun. This is probably the one Broken Lizard film you haven't seen other than Huddle Cruisers. And again, I don't really highly recommend that one. But definitely, if you've never checked out the Slammin Salmon, give it a watch. It's a pretty entertaining film. It is, these guys are hilarious. And this just continues that. They make good content of comedy. Which brings me to their final motion picture, or at least final one to date, which is Super Troopers 2. It is, of course, the first sequel, as none of these are even connected to each other. This is their first true sequel. Basically, you have our patrolmen again, and now they're having to go work the Canadian border because they found out part of Canada actually belongs to America, and so they're to go and police this new part of America. Again, you get the same antics as the first one. It's much like with The Odd Couple from last week. If you didn't check out that video, please do so. This is one that definitely reuses a lot of the same formula from the original Super Troopers, but it's okay. You've waited so long for a sequel that you're okay with seeing a lot of the same content again. And the story is changed just enough where it's not like, oh, I'm just getting the exact same movie. How dare they give me the exact same movie? They're still changing it up enough so you're getting a different movie. You're getting an original piece from this troupe. It's a lot of fun. Much like the first one, it's about drug smuggling. But it's a lot of fun. I like Super Troopers 2. Again, this would be the other one. Either it's Club Dread or this one is my favorite Broken Lizard film. I really super enjoyed Super Troopers 2 when I saw it. Like, I was surprised how much I liked it for it being a sequel that took a little over a decade, maybe more, to get made. But it is. I really like Super Troopers 2. Now, I know this is called Ranked Movies, and generally, I rank the movies at the end. So, obviously, in last place is Huddle Cruisers. Then I'd have to say Beer Fest, but again, I like Beer Fest. Beer Fest is good. But it is the weakest of the Broken Lizard troupe that isn't Huddle Cruisers. Then I'd probably go Slammin Salmon. Again, very good movie. Then the original Super Troopers. Then its sequel. I do think the sequel is slightly more entertaining. I think the first one has a lot of great jokes, a lot of classic jokes. I think the second one is just a slightly better flow of comedy to it. And then Club Dread. I think Club Dread is my favorite Broken Lizard film. It rates very highly on my scale of movies, and I really like it. So that is my kind of overview of the Broken Lizard film series, or the comedy troupe of Broken Lizard's films. I think, this is, the comedy troupe of my day and age, because no other comedy troupe is releasing motion pictures. Back in the day, you had Monty Python who did it, but, that was decades ago. So this is, I'm not saying they're Monty Python, this is definitely a different style of comedy, but they're still really good films, and I'd love to see more from them. I know you can get two of the members of this troupe, Kevin Heffernan and Steve Lemmy. You can watch their show, Tacoma PD, or FD, sorry, Tacoma FD. It's a firefighter show with a lot of the same comedic styles. I've watched the first 2 seasons. It's really good. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's a really good show. I know each of these guys have their own kind of solo careers now as well. But the Broken Lizard comedy troupe is a great comedy troupe. If you've never watched any of their films, check them out. They're definitely worth it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you've got something to say. Maybe you really love Huddle Cruisers. Please tell me why. I'm genuinely curious why someone likes that movie. Beyond that, I will see you next week where I'm going to talk about one of my favorite, weirdest, hardest to understand movies of all time. But I love it, and I'm going to talk about it. So stop back next week and see what I got to say. Otherwise, I'll see you later. Have a good one.